The following content contains personal experiences of our hosts and guests. We are not experts in this matter. We encourage challenging conversations with others and to achieve healing from our childhood. We hope to connect and allow a safe space to have an open discussion. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a qualified professional, diagnosis, or treatment.
We
No.
have so many questions.
I'm so glad
and
you
we
guys
just-
see. It arrived right on time
Yeah.
for you guys to read a little
I
bit
told her
of
that
it.
you finished it, and I'm like,
Girl.
only like
Finished it last night.
I
was like,
appreciate it.
I was crying. Oh my god!
lot of
Like
emotions.
so
Lot of
much
emotions.
emotions.
Oh my gosh, you guys! Thank
It-
you.
Thank you for
taking
sending
time
it. This
to
is-
read
Thank
it.
you
Yes.
for
of
writing it.
course,
Like I
yeah.
literally was telling her, like I resonate with a lot of stuff
Yeah.
on there. I was like, I am not alone.
Yeah.
You know, we're not alone.
Oh, so it arrived just in time, and I was like, maybe they can read like the first chapter, and I was like, and we can get pretty far with just that, you know. But oh no, that's awesome. Thank you for taking the time to read it.
It was a history
course.
lesson too.
You
I didn't know
No
that
joke.
part of Lao.
Well, and I
Laos.
you know, I've read it so many times that I told Kayla, I was like, I'm like sick of it, because I'm like, 'cause you know how you have to go back
You
and
have to
redo,
proof
redo,
it,
redo.
right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I know it like the back of my hand. So I was like, at this point, I kind of got to a point where I was like, what if people were like, don't like it? And you get this kind of, it's hard to be the creator and the subject, because you're like, okay, well, I'm the subject, I'm also making it. And then you kind of reach a point where you're scared to even publish, because you're like, are there people that are going to truly take the time and connect with this? And then I had to remind myself, like, okay, if I went through this, somebody else had to have. And even if it was just a small audience, I'm like, that's enough for me, as like someone to connect with it. So yeah, so let's go.
Yes.
Welcome back, First Gen Podcast listeners. So good to have you with us. We're winding down 2025, which is crazy, but hope everyone has had a great year. I'm one of your hosts, Nina Flores, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host and cousin.
Tiffany, Kristie, welcome back to another episode. We're excited to dive in.
We are so excited to have Amber Inthavong.
You got it.
Okay, got it? Okay. Thank you for being on our podcast. Amber, you are an author. You're from Colorado.
Yes.
We have her book here. You can find it on Amazon. It's called What We Brought Across the River, Memoir of a Lao American.
Yes.
And so we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper today. But yeah, we just want to talk about your background, your experience growing up as a first-gen Lao American. Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about the book as well. So thank you for joining us today.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I mentioned earlier that it's been a decade since I've been in LA. So I'm glad to be here. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and by the way, happy birthday.
Thank you.
What a great way to spend your
It
birthday in
is.
LA.
Thank you for making the trip out.
Yeah.
The last year of my 30s. It flies by. You know, it flies by. It just like, you know, breezes by and you wake up, you're like, oh my gosh, like, can't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's exciting. A
Yeah.
new era for you. So
It is,
amazing.
it is.
Amazing. All right, Amber. We are just so curious about your family. We started reading the book. So much resonated with us. So thank you for writing the book and sharing your experience, your family's experience. But yeah, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background, where your family's from, and
Sure.
where you guys ended up in the U.S. Yeah.
Yeah. So my parents are from Laos. Specifically, my dad is from a village called Hoi Sai, and my mom is from a northern village called Long Nam Ta. Very hard names, by the way. And they immigrated here in 1980. They officially found out they were selected to come to America in January of 1980. And I was born in 1986 in Boulder, Colorado. Yeah. So very different land.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Drastic.
Such
weather.
a drastic change. Yeah. They call us the Mile High City because we are a mile above sea level. You will feel it if you ever go, because the
I've heard.
altitude and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Altitude sickness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Have to hydrate. So, yeah.
And very similar to our parents. ended up in Minnesota. Very drastic change as well. How did your parents end up there?
So it was very interesting. They actually, when they first were selected to come to the U.S., they came to Seattle first. And then what happened is they were kind of just figuring out where they were going to settle, where they were going to feel like they had a good sense of community. And eventually they landed in Colorado, and then that's where I was born. But when they first came over, they actually came over with my older sister. So she was refugee baby. Like she was like, she had been through some of the most. And then after that, my brother was actually born in Seattle. And then eventually they came to Colorado, where I was born. So Boulder, Colorado, and the Colorado area was all I knew. Yeah.
Incredible. And I know in your book you talk about your grandparents and your parents' journey.
Yes.
For us, it was definitely a history lesson,
history
actually.
lesson,
Yes.
yeah.
Because this is not something that is really talked about. And I know when you and I connected earlier a few weeks ago, there's a lot of misunderstanding
Oh my gosh.
around the war. So, I definitely want to hear a little bit more about that. Just tell us, like, what was that experience like for your
Absolutely.
parents?
So growing up in Colorado, I had, come across a lot of friends that their parents also immigrated from Laos. So I'd also often ask them, okay, well, like, what's your parents' story? How did they come over here? Like, do you know what they had to endure and like what it took for them to be here? And I cannot tell you how many times I would hear them say, well, they just said that like they crossed the river, ended up in Thailand, and eventually immigrated here, and then I was born. And I felt like the story always fell short. I felt like there was a disconnect. And it could either be because their parents didn't want to talk about it, or everyone wants to move on. And I get that. But I just feel like if we have the opportunity to know the truth about what happened, we can see our parents through a different lens. And it was really interesting to sit down with my mom and talk about, okay, what is your recollection of what occurred? And then for me to go look up history and research and see how they both aligned. Like some of the things she said, I'm like, oh my God, that's in line with the timeline of like what happened to her and then what was happening in the time of history. I think to answer your question about, like what was really occurring is there's this huge misunderstanding about why it happened, how it happened, who was involved, and why Thailand was the safe place, the safe haven for people to run to. And, people say, well, I know it's in something in connection to the Vietnam War. I don't know. They just, something with communism and they came over. But there is so much more to the story because our parents had to make very impossible decisions. And a part of the book is just to explain how my parents had to constantly find themselves in situations where they had to make difficult decisions that they didn't want to make and shed themselves of family members that were afraid to leave. And they're like, we're going to stay. And then my mom and dad being like, we can't be here anymore. And, I think the main thing about the Secret War is that it had U.S. involvement. And people don't understand that, like, what the repercussions of when you are in a proxy war. So with what happened, it's like there's something to be said about a war where you didn't have your 2 cents in it. You didn't have a say. And what was happening at the time was the Hin Hup Trail in Laos was providing supplies to Vietnam. And at the time, President Eisenhower, had a theory called the domino theory. And his theory was if one country falls to communism, then another country will fall, and another country will fall, and we can't let that happen. So he approved of a secret war. And it was a secret mission where he had the U.S. CIA come into Laos, and their mission was to disrupt the Hin Hoop Trail so that they can disrupt the trail of supplies going into Vietnam. And yes, and so when he recruited the US CIA to come into Laos, they allied with a tribe in Laos called the Hmong tribe. And the Hmong tribe allied with the Americans, and they said, okay, we're in this with you. We want to stop communism. We want to do everything we can to make sure that we disrupt the supplies. And what ended up happening was this turned into an over decade-long war, and it made Laos the most heavily bombed country per capita. More bombs dropped than in World War II combined.
Wow.
And so the result was the communists saw the Hmong as traitors. And they said, okay, well, you're a traitor, so you either need to run or we're going to kill you for being a traitor. So the Hmong had no choice. They had to escape. The general Lao population, which would be like my mom, my dad, and the people that, you know, they're just existing as Lao civilians, their choices were you need to surrender to our new government or run. And my mom and dad made very difficult decisions, and they're like, we can't stay here. And I think that it paralyzed my mom's family and my dad's family, and they were like, well, we're not ready. We're afraid to. We don't know what's going to happen. So my parents were, you know, they're like, okay, we're going to go. And they were very young when they made that decision. So,
Young
yeah.
and brave.
Yes.
And they saw a future beyond, and that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
The
Can you
chances-
imagine?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wild.
Just to be like, I have to seek asylum and I have to go. And even if it means leaving my
The
family behind.
the people that they
Oh my gosh.
know.
Yeah. So they ended up in a refugee camp eventually in Thailand. And then, that involved like them living in a holding area with my older sister for almost 30 days until they were finally accepted into the camp. And then in the camp, it was a very liminal like lifestyle. And then, yeah, my parents didn't realize it, but they're like, we have to check mark a box of what country we're willing to resettle into. And my mom chose France and the U.S., and they got selected to go to the U.S. So, yeah, it was really incredible. And, the church world service, and at the time there was a Christian church in Seattle, and they had posted pictures up on the walls, and they were able to select a family that they're willing to sponsor. And they found a picture of my mom, my dad, and my older sister.
Oh, wow.
And they said, I want that family. And my dad had $10 in his pocket. Yeah.
Wow.
And they flew across the ocean. They're like, we don't even know whose house we're going to, or we never, we don't know
Speak the language.
Yeah, they're like, let's just go. We got to get out of here, So,
Leap of faith.
Yeah.
Gosh. Yeah.
yeah, it's
A
really
huge
crazy.
leap of faith across the ocean.
Across the
Yeah.
ocean.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah. And I think that's sort of my best effort of like taking a super long story and condensing it in the best way possible. Yeah.
Yes. And that's why you have to read this book.
Yeah.
And I just want to say you're an incredible writer.
Absolutely.
God,
I felt
yes.
it was so easy to read and connected.
Thank
like,
you.
Through the whole entire, like, one, a history lesson, but two, your journey, your experience throughout all of it was, I
appreciate it
was
so much.
a breath of fresh air to, like, read this. And like, such a history lesson on top of
Yeah.
that, another first generation American
Oh my
in
gosh.
that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
With tropical climate to like cold weather, like that's so like what
I know.
what
Lots
was up
of
in the
adjusting.
80s, like that happened to our family too.
Yeah.
So
Well, and then I was telling Nina that there's this, with Asian Americans, we all have our own reasons. Our parents had their own reasons, but there's this parallel, right, of like we all ended up here.
yeah.
So we all have to, we have this chance to really understand how did we end up here, So
To start asking
yeah,
those
it's a big
questions
story. Yeah,
is huge.
yeah.
I was curious while you were talking, about how you and your mom sat down.
Oh my
and
God.
How was it approaching your mom in the first place? And
Yeah.
was she receptive at first, or was she like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to open that, traumatic journey or that really tough time
Yeah.
to make that decision for her family and her future and cutting ties with the family that she has back at home
Yeah.
to like make a better life for your sister and for your brother
100%.
and yourself?
Yeah.
Down the line?
I think that like growing up, I'd ask like questions here and there, like, okay, mom, like, obviously these kids I'm going to school with, like, they don't know what this country is, like, what's going on, like, how do we end up here? And for a long, long time, they're like, don't worry about it. Like, we're here. Let's just be grateful we're here. Just do your best. And I'm like, okay, well, I just feel like, is there something, there's a disconnect, And it wasn't until I got older and I got a lot more curious and I started to really dig. And you're asking your parents to like dig into a painful part of themselves. Because during that, decade-long war, my mom like lost her father. She didn't know where her father ended up. She didn't know what ended up happening to him. And then, imagine making decisions when you're like, I have no certainty if this is going to work out, but what other choice do I have?
Right.
And I've never really been in that dire of a situation. So it took some time and I feel like maybe for her to really accept some things, and then for me to be like, okay, let's sit down and talk about this. And she's like, okay, we'll do it. Yeah.
That's huge.
And so when I was much younger, that wasn't the case. But as I got older, she was ready to. So it needed to be spoken about. And I just felt like there's some commonality if I'm talking to other Lao Americans that are of my age and they don't really understand their parents' story, then there's commonality here. I think there's a lot of parents here that are dealing with some trauma and they don't want to talk about it. They're not ready to. And so, so it was time and I was very happy to do it because in reality, when I looked for books about the Secret War, I found some books about the Secret War, but they were written from the perspective that wasn't a Lao American, that wasn't a first generation. The amount of authors that were writing about this from their perspective, it was just minimal. And I was like, there's an opportunity here, to say it from our perspective and our family's perspective. And it's going to be through a different lens as somebody who's just researching it and they're like, this is what happened, versus someone who's like, this is what happened and this is what my mom told me and this is how I grew up. Okay, those are two different perspectives. And it's so important to have those voices out there, So, that's right. So,
I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. I know you mentioned that you connected with other Lao Americans. Are you trying to connect with others more to kind of hear their parents' story as well? Like just kind of, I feel like with your book, there's so many emotions and feelings that I'm sure a lot of first-gen Lao Americans are feeling too. But then there's that fear too with parents speaking out. I mean, you mentioned in the book, them sharing their feelings, back then in their country could get them killed.
yes.
And so I think that carried throughout their upbringing as adults, as raising children. So I'm just curious, like, what have you found out with connecting with other Lao Americans?
I will say the power of social media, because before I did this book, I was doing freelance writing lots of local articles about what to do in Colorado and stuff like that. And so when I had my social media account, I was connecting with a lot of people from Lao Americans from LA, from Boston, and I was like, wow, like this is really the power of social media is like there's this wider reach of people that they're right where I'm at and they get it. And we can totally relate, and that there's a sense of community. And I really like that. And the more I was connecting with other Lao Americans, I was realizing like I don't have to just stay isolated to the people in Colorado. There's more out there that want this and that want to speak about this. And it was very inspiring because once you feel that you have someone to relate to and connect with, you're like, okay, now I feel more empowered to want to voice things and share things. And that's been the effect. So the ripple of social media and the connections and stuff. And of course, like that's how I found you guys, you know, listening to some of your episodes. And, you know, I love 90s music too. I mean, I'm a millennial, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I'm like, there's people out there that they get it. And I think when you're a child, there's an absence of that. And then now that you're older, you're just like, oh, this is great. Like, because there's a connection there and I can really make that connection. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And I know that you and I grew up in the Midwest. I was the only Asian American girl in my class. I think you kind of had a similar experience. I didn't speak the language growing up, but do you speak the language?
I do, horribly.
Oh, okay.
I went back to Laos, and then I speak with my uncle and stuff, and they're like, it was laughable because they're like, you have this like American accent while you're speaking our language, but then you look the part. So it's like super, odd, right? And it's just funny, and I'm sure it was strange for them because they're like, it's just weird to see someone that is of our blood, but then you have this like American, accent with it and stuff. So I spoke it because my parents, they prioritize like how are we going to foster this culture and make sure that we're like speaking. But of course, like at home, it was like a mix of, I'd say a sentence and I'm saying like some of it in Lao and then some of it in English because I'm like, oh, I don't remember what it was. So I'll just say it in English and stuff. And it was this blended kind of language with them and stuff like that. So yeah.
Well, that's so awesome, though, that at least you're trying. Every time I try to speak Tagalog, everyone laughs. It's like, you don't have the right accent, or it sounds funny. I'm like, well, so I always felt shamed for trying as a child. But now Tiff and I were both on the mission to learn it. Like she'll text me in Tagalog. You're getting good, actually.
Text?
So it's never too late. I know. I was like, hello.
Yeah.
So it's never too late. But no, that's so incredible that you got to go back. And just see the homeland. Like,
oh my gosh!
Did you go with your parents then? And
I did. We went as a family. I brought my daughter, and then brought my parents, and we made this big old trip of it. We went for a solid month, and then got to see some family and reconnect again. And I found that visiting as an adult versus like when your parents drag you along and you're young. Like when you're young, you're just like, oh, there's bugs and it's hot. But then when you're older, you're like, oh my God, I have so much respect for this country. Like I feel like a connection. I feel like there's, it's weird how a place where you didn't grow up will feel so much like home. Because the smells of the food is the same smells that you smelled in your mom's kitchen. And the language you're hearing being spoken, you're like, oh, that's the same thing I hear at home. So you just feel like there's this loving kind of like connection and like, oh my God, I didn't want to come home. I was like, oh my God, I want to stay here.
Yeah.
So
and a full month too.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone says you gotta
stay.
You gotta go. It's so far that it's like if you're gonna go, go for a while. Especially when you have a lot of family to see.
That's true.
And it's overwhelming, and there's a lot to explore and stuff like that. Yeah. So,
but I hear you on that. When I was able to go back to the Philippines as an adult, it was so different as a child.
Yeah.
Because obviously as a child, I spoke my mind about like this milk in my cereal is warm. Like they had to milk the cow or the goat or whatever to make that milk for me, and I didn't appreciate it. But going as an adult, I was so humbled.
Oh my God!
And the easy way of life that they, like it was just the fast pace was not there. It was just like so calm.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't want to go back to like the hustle and bustle of the city in Los Angeles. I was like,
you're like, the last thing I want to do is go home.
It's like vacation. It was like so calming, and to like see the family members or just the people, the culture.
Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
And I think you really hit it when you're saying like the humbling experience, because you realize like at home we fret about, oh my gosh, I'm still like striving to get the better place or get the better car or get the better job, but then you go back and you're reminded of like, okay, well, what's more important? Do you have what you really need? Because that's really what it is. And, you know, you go back and you see that they're living on such, just the necessities.
Yeah.
And I think in general, travel brings that perspective to you anyway, right? Like, you know, international travel, you're like, okay, I'm seeing people through a different lens, culture through a different lens. And so, yeah, 100%. And the Philippines is like made up of all these islands and, you know, there's a lot to see. Yeah.
I've yet to go. I think my mom and I are going to go next year. So
How
my mom
exciting.
hasn't been back since the 70s. So yeah,
Wow.
so this is why she's like, okay, I'm finally going to take you. For whatever reason, I mean, your parents were much more open to it. You guys went a lot, but my mom, she always thought it was so dangerous to like bring my brother and I. My brother was born there,
Okay.
but she's like, they're going to know you're American. They're going to shake you down for money. And I mean, I don't know if that's true. You've gone many times.
Yeah.
It's been fine. But she's always had that fear, which is something I kind of want you to dive into. I don't know what her
You just need to be
experience has been.
cautious of your
Yeah.
surroundings is
Yeah,
all.
I think she
you
was just
know?
overthinking it, and
Yeah.
she really wanted us to be American, you know, like, and that's the reason why we didn't speak the language and didn't really eat
Oh
the
my
food.
gosh.
So I think that's the whole reason. But now she's kind of, now that I'm doing this podcast too, she's like, okay, you know what? I think you're ready to like learn about your
awesome.
culture. I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. And you, that really, you know, just you even saying that got me to expand more on some of my thought processes. Is like, my brother was given an American name and then I was given an American name. And the kind of thought process is like, we just don't want it to be hard for you in America. Like if you, like, your name is going to be a measure of like your success here, and we don't want people to see you as different. So they almost like, they came here and they're like, we want you to be as American as possible.
Yeah.
And then in the same respect, it's like, okay, but you're sort of shamed because like, why don't you know the language?
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
Right.
come on, like, you know, like, what do you want from me?
But I'm
So-
American. Wait, that's where you
Yeah.
talked in the book, riding the fine line of being in between.
Yeah.
The in
and
between.
The in between.
Yeah.
That
And so,
resonated with me
yeah,
for sure.
That really connected.
your brother, you know, coming, you know, he came from here or from there to here. It's just the same thing with my sister. Like, she has the full on like Lao name, and then like over here we're like, they'll be like, your name's Amber, is that really your name? I'm like, yeah, it's really my name. Yeah. So yeah. Definitely different.
I was curious, when you went back with your parents, was that their first time going back since they?
No.
Okay.
So they had gone back when I was 3 years old.
Okay.
And then, you know, obviously, I don't remember, you know, I remember that. But then we went back again when I was like, I think I was in middle school, and I was still like, you know, pain in the butt. You know, because it's a long flight, and I'm like, who are these people? And you know, and then when I went in my 30s, I was like, okay, I'm ready to receive. I'm ready to understand this country. And then when you open yourself up, you're like, okay, there's this connection that you have to make to like, okay, my identity at home, my identity here, and trying to figure out like, how am I going to have a blended identity? Because we have this opportunity right now to define what Asian American is.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of the time in our adolescence, we're like, okay, well, I'm not fitting here. I'm not fitting here. Well, this is why, because you have to, we have the chance to create a blended, you know, we get to define what Asian American
We are the
looks like.
first generation.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. And that's what first generation, and that's why, you know, there's complexities to it. But how do we own both and define what it looks like? Because like when I was like in the 70s, 80s, you're looking at TV and it's like the foreign exchange student, you know, just kind of very stereotypical roles. And then now we're kind of coming into a new time right now. And you're like, okay, well, Asian Americans come in all different forms and different quirks and different talents. And it's beautiful to see that now. And I mentioned in the book, I just don't think that I was born in the right time because when I was younger, that was not seen in the media.
There is no representation for it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And people discredit why representation is important. But the thing is, the way that your culture is represented or anything close to it, like just Asian culture is represented, a lot of people just will define that this is how you are. Okay, you're just this like, funny sidekick or like foreign exchange student, and then they just define that that's who you are, and that's why it's so important in the media to be represented in the right way. Because I was looking for that when I was a kid. I was looking for that on TV,
Yeah.
and it wasn't there yet.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I felt the same way growing up. I mentioned this like in other episodes. No one knew where the Philippines were when I was growing up. No one knew what a Filipino was. So I identified as Chinese because that was kind of like what people knew. Like people in school, they know Chinese, Japanese. They have Chinese food for dinner. They don't know what Filipino is. So I kept going to school. I would tell people I was Chinese. And my parents were like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but no one knows what this is. Like, they don't even know where the country is.
You
I don't
sort of
even know.
surrendered.
Yeah.
You're like, whatever you want to
I'm
call me,
like,
that's what I am.
Yeah,
I guess,
and that's what I
yeah.
was seeing in the media. It's like, okay, you have like a Chinese actress. Okay, so that's the representation I'm seeing. So I need to identify with that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something earlier too. It's just like finding those places to belong.
Yeah.
And I still struggle
Yeah.
with that to this day,
Yeah.
But growing up, it was so confusing because I'm like, I'm not white, but I'm not Filipino enough. And you internalize all these feelings and you're just like a hot mess,
Yeah. You start to kind of just like cave into yourself and you're like, okay, well, people don't know what the heck Laos is. And they're like, whatever, you're full of it. You're like Chinese or Japanese. I'm like, okay, I guess I am.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like, and I'm like, my name's Amber. And they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, okay, I guess it's not, And then they're like, where are you really from? I'm like, I was born in Boulder. They're like, yeah, right. And I'm like, okay, I guess I wasn't. So it's like you're kind of following what people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
So that they can sort of like just leave you alone. Like, it's like, okay, fine. Whatever you want to call me, that's what I am,
Exactly.
And then you get older and you're like, no, if you don't know what Laos is, I'm going to teach you what Laos is. If you don't know Lao food, I'm going to show you what Lao food is. I think that's what needs to be more encouraged. Is like, if they don't know, it's just because they don't know. Like, just to share it and be open about it and embrace it. And then, I think that's just kind of the starting place. People just don't know what they don't know. And, it's complicated.
And that's why you talk about it. And that's why, again, tying back to the representation matters.
Yeah.
It's just bringing awareness. Like,
Yeah.
we exist.
Yeah.
These countries exist.
Yeah.
Our families moved out here, and this is our experience.
Yes. This is what it's like.
This is what it's like.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I didn't know about the Hmong community until I watched Gran Torino.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And even though I know there's some, I read there was even a little bit more of like misrepresentation, but the fact that it brought the community, and sure there's racist things said in there, but I think that was part of Clint Eastwood's character.
Yes.
But either way, it brought that community to light. And I think it
Yes.
was in Michigan, Gran Torino, 2008.
Yeah. I do remember that. Yeah.
And I was like, this is why we just need to be in these stories. I do believe stories that are intended and with the filmmakers that are recognize that community and have an authentic storytelling to that community is a lot more, much more needed than people trying to tell our stories.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, reading your book, it comes from your perspective, your authenticity,
Yeah.
and you are bringing a sense of belonging to the communities, to the first generation communities, for Asian American community, and connecting us.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful that we are finally have a voice, because like I read it in your book and I, again, resonated with so much. I'm just trying to fit in. And mind you, I did grow up with a lot of Filipinos in my school, but I still felt
a disconnect.
out of place.
Yeah.
Still couldn't fit in, or like the standards of society. You have to be, very American. I also went through a phase of wearing different colored contact lenses.
Oh my God, girl.
To be like, sure, I'm trying to fit in here.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was just like, oh my God, you are
You're
literally
like, I was
writing
there. Yeah.
my high school journey
Yes.
right here.
Yeah.
And the fact that journaling, I wish I'd journaled more those thoughts, but
Yeah.
like seeing it on paper and reading it. And I was telling her earlier, I was like crying last night just reading it.
Oh my
This was
God,
like
no way.
so much healing just reading your book.
That's incredible.
And I feel like there's a lot of other people that can totally relate
Oh,
to this.
thank you. That's so great to hear. Like, you write something like this, you publish it, and you're like, I don't know. I hope someone's going to connect to this. And but all I know is that this is how it was for me. And you know how weird it looks when like an Asian girl is wearing blue color contacts,
Right.
dyeing her hair blonde. You know, I was like, I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then but you are just trying to figure out like, where you're gonna fit, and you're trying so hard to make other people comfortable with you, that the result is you're creating a disingenuous version of who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what happens is over time, you're like, okay, well, now I'm just lessening my own self-worth. And then now I feel even further removed. And you're just like, I need to go back to the drawing board. I need to figure this out. And some of these things, it comes with age, right? And then we're like, okay, I really need to figure out how I can own this in a way that feels good for me, So it's a journey. And I want people to connect. I was talking about that, and I was like, if even like, a handful of people connect to this, I would feel good about it. It's like that. I just like I said, there's just not enough of a presence of this story, and if someone can connect to it, that would be enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We felt the same way with this podcast too. It's like, and it brought us together.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
opportunity to connect with people we haven't met before.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
Yeah.
So keep sharing
Oh,
your
thank you.
stories.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Keep
Keep
voicing.
writing.
Yeah. Keep writing.
Thank
You got fans right here. We
I know.
will,
Yeah,
we will
exactly.
subscribe.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I
exactly.
appreciate it.
And I think it's so incredible that you're able to reconnect with your parents and have them talk about this.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned in the book, and this is how my parents grew up too, they didn't really show affection. Sharing feelings was like, no,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that type of trauma affects us as first gen. But yeah, I mean, I grew up the same way. Like my parents got divorced, but even when they were together, I never saw them be affectionate because everything was about survival.
Oh my God.
I mean, their experience was a little different from your parents, but it was kind of like that part with me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
there's other people that parents are like that,
100%.
And so, yeah, like this whole thing about like not being able to share feelings. And I mean, with your parents, it was like, it was out of fear, because of the war.
Yeah.
And so how did that impact you growing up? I mean, much like Tiff and I, we've had our experience of trauma as well, and trying to learn to now develop and express feelings,
Oh my gosh.
I'm not sure if you're experiencing that too.
It's a big, I don't want to say burden. It's a heavy weight for us to carry, right? Because now we're in this, we're really facing a lot, and we're confronting a lot in our generation, because the generation before us is like, what do we need to confront? What happened, and there's never a conversation about it. But I will say this, that like, as my parents have gotten older, I can see that the result of them kind of burying things has, now that they're older, it's like starting to surface. And I'm trying to get them to realize like, this is the result of like, not in a shaming way, but just this is a result of like you not processing and talking about things. And then when you're raising children to not do that either, we're very conflicted. It's very like, oh, okay, like you need to be quiet, like don't share your feelings, like that's not what, you're not going to survive in this world if you do that. But it's the opposite. Vulnerability is strength. That is what fosters the healing. And so I kind of had to like veer my own path and be like, because I believe in therapy. I believe in leaning into the discomfort, leaning into like, why am I uncomfortable about this? What do I need to sort through? And you feel very isolated in that because your family's not really backing you. They're kind of like, okay, do what you need to do. But with age, I feel like they're starting to realize, okay, I have some stuff with my mental health. Like my dad started to admit, okay, I got some stuff. I got some stuff. And I'm like, okay. But they're in their 60s and I'm like, it saddens me because if I'm in my late 30s and I'm like, I'm just sorting through. I can't imagine like holding on to that until like your mid to late 60s. Like, that's it'll just hurt you and hinder you. And so it saddens me because I think that they're coming from a place of like keeping their feelings and thoughts to themselves, and then they're coming here and they're like, okay, that's how we survive. But it's like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do it like that anymore. Like it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Like even as a kid, like if I talk negatively about politics or something and somebody in a position of power, they're like, don't say anything. And I'm like, we're not in Laos anymore. Like you can do it, like you can have an opinion, this is a democracy. You can have your opinions on things and you can have your stance on things. And they kind of had a lot of shifting to do, right. With like their views and their, how they went about their life. So, but that's a lot, right? You're navigating your own things and you're trying to help your parents navigate their stuff. It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot to carry. So
definitely.
Yeah.
Do you feel that now that you've written this book and your parents have shared kind of like their experience, do you feel like that's helped them heal in a way or provided some sort of relief? I mean, if they were holding on to those feelings and not talking about that experience for all these years, what do they feel now, do you think?
I think there's a level of acceptance that they're like, okay, this needs to happen, Okay. Whereas before it's like, this is not necessary, this isn't, why would we do this? But now, I mean, they're at an age where like this, okay, that's great. This needs to happen. And, but I can't say that a lot of people in their generation and their community feel the same way, because my dad was I was nervous to publish it because, my dad he did it in a passive way, expressed to me like, oh, like, maybe is it a good idea for us to be talking about like what we did when the communists took over? And like, there's still this fear. And it's crazy because I'm like, we're okay. We're okay. But there's this lingering fear that kind of just hangs out there. And I'm like, that's too bad because you don't want to live that way. So yeah, it's a transition. It's, it's going to take time still. And it's, I think that I want to push that for a lot more families. There's a big Hmong population in Colorado. Oh, really? People don't understand what the Hmong did for the Lao. The Hmong fought bravely for us. They're like, we are going to ally with Americans. We do not want communists to take over our country. And bear in mind, Laos is made of 160 different dialects. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a small country, but you got lots of tribes and different dialects and belief systems. And it was the Hmong tribe that was like, we got to stop communism. We're going to ally with Americans. And it's the saddest thing because as soon as the communists took over, they're like, you guys allied with Americans. You're traitors. Run. Because we're either going to burn your houses down and you're done. People would surrender. Hmong people that didn't even fight, they just happened to be Hmong. They're like, well, they would surrender and they'd kill them anyway. So the Hmong people, they fought bravely for our country. They really did. So, yeah. Yeah. Did you guys know a lot of Hmong people over when you guys were in the Midwest?
Minnesota, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I had like a few in my class.
Okay.
And again, like the first, I think I was like in first grade, there was somebody in my class and they transferred to a different school. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's like me, but like totally different backgrounds. But it was like the first time I was like, oh, interesting. Yeah. So there's like another Asian American, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was actually a lot among people like in the Twin Cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis area.
St. Paul.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, what about you here in LA? I don't think there was, right?
No.
Again, honestly, when I watch Gran Torino is when
Yeah,
I
that's
Oh,
when
okay,
we
yeah.
got it,
found
yeah.
out.
Uh-huh.
They
So-
put them on the map. Yeah,
they put
with
it on
that.
the map
No,
for
that's great.
me at least, so I was a little sheltered from that
Yeah.
out here. But yeah, so that's why it was just a breath of fresh air to hear more of the
More about
history
that, yeah.
through your book.
That's a challenge too. Is like, how do I write this in a way that translates and isn't overly complicated? Just like kind of like, let me just walk you through, like, someone who I would assume doesn't know anything about it, and just kind of walk
Yeah.
them through it. Yeah.
You
So
are an amazing writer.
Yeah,
So
thank
it
you.
was,
Yeah.
it was very smooth transition. So
I know that you wanted to kind of open up to the community and write this book, but what made you do it? Was there like something that happened, or is it something that you were thinking about for many years and you're like, I'm just gonna start writing? How did
yeah,
that
I
come
think
about?
it just I had worked on it I worked on it 3 years ago.
Oh wow.
I wrote the transcript, and I just remember I just like sat at my desk and put my thoughts down. I'm like, I think this is how I want to organize it. And it's so overwhelming because I wanted to make sure I represented my family the right way, and then where my perspective was. I wanted to honor everything the right way. And there's a lot with that, because you put it down, you pick it back up, and you're like, I need to step away from it for a little bit. And then you come back, and I've gotten rid of entire things and started back at the drawing board. And but I had to keep remembering why it's important. I had to keep remembering the conversations I had with people my age that were Lao Americans, and they're like, I don't know, my parents just came here and I was born here. And I'm like, come on, like there's a story there, and someone's got to do it. And I felt like, as my parents age, I'm like, I want to honor that, and represent our family. And like I said, there just wasn't a lot out there from a perspective of first generation.
Yeah. Wow.
So I had to remember what was motivating me to do that. So
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. In 3 years. Ooh.
yeah, it's hard. Books are hard.
that's amazing.
Books
I
are
know.
hard.
I don't know
did
if I
it.
could like work on something for 3 years, like,
Yeah.
but but your motivation was there, and the story you wanted to tell, like you had to tell it.
I was like, no, I don't like this. Get rid of it. Start over. And then I'm like, this sounds weird. And then just you become obsessed with it, because you're like, it just has to be right. And but you do reach a point where you're like, okay, does it reach its purpose? Does it sit well with me? Okay, let's refine it. And if you have to just publish it when it's in a good place, because I could extend this to 10 years, if I'm like never thinking it's perfect enough. But I had to remember my reasons and the purpose and what it serves, and then just kind of get it out there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's good.
yeah.
Wow. Good for you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
did
you.
it. You did it. You're doing it.
You're doing it
doing it.
and doing it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Your secret box of wins. Your good grades.
Oh,
I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so speaking about like just the standards that the parents have put
Yeah. yeah,
on us going to school
absolutely.
was like the bare minimum. The
Yeah.
bare minimum standard
Sorry
was
about
good
it.
grades. And
Yeah.
and you talking about like going to other people's houses and seeing
Yeah.
all like all their accolades on the fridge or just anything to like, hey, I'm proud of you, son.
Yeah.
Your house had nothing. It's
Yeah.
just like you had to have good grades, and
Yeah.
it's not celebrated because it's like that's what you have to do.
Bare minimum.
That's bare
Yeah.
minimum. You had to. But like for you to recognize that at such a young age, like I'm going to celebrate me that I did this.
Yeah.
I got
so
this good
awesome.
grades, and then you
Yeah.
put it in your like shoebox or
Yeah.
a box of wins
Yeah.
under your bed, I think. is
Yeah.
where and I
Yeah.
was like, oh,
Oh.
you were championing you, like you recognize that. I didn't have. I didn't think that. I still kept looking for that outside validation of like, look at me, I did
Right.
this. I got an A minus.
Right.
But
No, I'm glad that stood out for you. I think it's just like with my parents like coming over from Laos, in a communist ruled country, you're stripped of everything. If you're educated, I mean, doctors, religious leaders, anyone educated, you're a threat. You're a threat to communism. So my parents, in reality, came over here with just an 8th grade education. And they worked cleaning jobs. So we grew up quite poor. And when they were working cleaning jobs, they just, I'd bring home a good grade and they'd be like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, but, and I was like, oh, okay. And it just, it was such a difference in my home life versus the home life of others I went to school with. I mean, going to their house and seeing everything displayed and they're so proud of their children. And I just kind of like, is that how it's supposed to be? And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. I don't feel like I'm really celebrated in that way. And so I just kind of kept things for myself and good grades and projects I've done. And I'm like, okay, well, this is for me. And this is something that's just going to encourage me to continue forward. And when I got to college, I made the dean's list the first couple of years of my bachelor's program. I didn't even tell my mom and dad because I was like, I had known enough from my childhood. I'm like, this isn't, they're not,
right.
I'm like,
not gonna say anything like,
they're like, yeah, you're supposed to, So, I just kept it to myself, and those were the little wins and little words I kept for myself, to encourage me, and it's not to their, I don't really blame them for. I think they just kind of look at it like we left because you cannot be educated there. And that's why education's the forefront here. It's not just one of the reasons we're here. It's the reason that we're here. Is like, you got to fulfill this. So some of the main expectations of coming here and what they expect of us is get a degree and get married. Just get a degree and get married. Get a degree and it was just the one constant thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll do that. And you just want to make your parents proud and make sure you're serving them and honoring them in the right ways. But let's be honest, in the society, in the world we're in, like, you don't need to have, a bunch of degrees to be super successful, and you don't need to be married. There's a lot of people that have achieved great things without multiple degrees, if a degree at all, and achieve great things without even being married. So that's a shift too, is for them to kind of learn that this is not the standard and the only way to be successful. There's so many other ways to be successful. So they had to do a lot of changing themselves in their understanding of what success looks like.
Well, I think we should all have a box of wins, even
Yes,
now.
a box of
I think that
wins.
would help me.
Keep
That
a
is
box
so
of wins.
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep it near you.
Yeah.
That's my project now. Box of wins. And I'll share it with you guys.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yes.
I guess what message would you want to share with Lao Americans or anyone growing up between two cultures?
I would say that if you are not proud and don't want to own who you are or where you came from, then you will just lose everything about yourself. And I think that was a constant reminder throughout childhood and into my teenage years, is that the more I rejected who I was, the more further removed I felt. And I think we talked about this a little bit. It's just so important to own your identity. We have just such a unique opportunity right now to, define what Asian American looks like. And it comes in all different forms and shapes and sizes. And, if someone doesn't know what your country is, they've never heard about it, then that's your opportunity to show them what it is and invite them into your home and, share it with them, because that's that's where it all starts. Because when I was a child, it was like, I don't want anybody over. I don't want the topic of where I'm from to come up. I know you mentioned you're like, okay, well, I just told people I was Chinese, or it's you're just being further and further disconnected. And I think that another part of it is now that my daughter is a grown woman herself, I'm really looking at it from a perspective of the way that each generation that unfolds after us, second generation, third generation, fourth generation, we will just create generations that become further disconnected from our culture and who we are. And so it's so important for us to create that baseline so that it spills over into these next generations and that they can honor who they are as well.
Absolutely.
Because if we don't do it, then it's just going to further drift away from our identities and who we are.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
Yes.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And again, thank you for your courage to be able to share your story, your parents' story in this book. And so, again, if you guys are looking for it, it's on, is it on Amazon?
Yeah.
Amazon.
Yep.
Okay, great.
So right on Amazon, you can have it in ebook, paperback, hardcover.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amber, for coming on to the pod.
Thank you for having
and
me.
sharing your story. It was so much fun.
So such a great
you.
conversation.
Yeah.
We could talk forever
Oh,
about
yes. Truly can.
Yeah, it's a very, there's lots of layers to the topic.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And actually, are you working on anything right now? Writing anything else?
No, I felt like after I finalized the book, it was like this huge sigh of relief. And when you're writing something like this, you're so 100% focused on the actual transcript, how it looks, getting it out there. And then after the fact, you're like, oh, well, I have to get the word out about it too, because it exists and it's there. And I'm like, oh, well, I have to now shift 100% of my focus on spreading the word about it, because otherwise it just sits there, right? And so it's just a shift of focus at this point, and just sharing with the world of this is here. If you want something to read and you want something to connect to, here's a story that you can kind of take into consideration, and maybe it'll inspire you to learn more about your parents and what their journeys were. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
awesome.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you so much for
you.
going on our podcast and making the
Yes.
journey here. I do also want to add, for the month of November, and Thanksgiving is approaching us here in America, I just wanted to see what's one thing that you're grateful for and thankful for.
Yeah, I'm grateful for growth. Sometimes you're not ready for it. Sometimes you don't know how you're going to do it. But when you're in situations where you have no choice but to grow, that's when you really get to see yourself in a different light and understand that, wow, I don't realize how strong I can be when I have no choice but to be. So I'm grateful for growth and the power of that. And, we are such resilient beings with energies, and, there's so much stake at that. And I am incredibly grateful for growth, because I feel like I've done a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yes, you truly have.
Thank you.
Again, it's a testament in this book and your life journey. So
You guys have to
thank
read
you.
it.
You got to read it.
Yeah.
You got to read it. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
being
Thank you
here.
so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
All right, and thank you for all of you guys out there listening in. If anything resonated with you, if you have any comments, questions, just hit us up on our IG. We're on Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. But yeah, we will
Wherever
see
you
next
get your
time.
podcasts. But yeah.
Oh, there you go. Wherever you get your podcast. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.